session attended by 33 African governments and a number of international agencies and civil society groups. The meeting highlighted the need for greater monitoring and early warning of climate changes and severe weather events like droughts and floods, and called for integration of long-term adaptation strategies into development and disaster preparedness programs. As Sierra Leonean climate scientist Ogunyade Davidson has observed, and I quote him, "Africa never enjoyed the financial benefits generated by putting greenhouse gases up there through the industrial revolution of the developed countries in the first place. It never accumulated the wealth to be able to bear the shocks. So now they have, again quote, to cope with the effects of a situation they did not create with resources they do not have. And global warming is a double loser for countries in Africa." Climate change manifests itself and is felt in different ways. It is occasioned by global warming and excessive deposition of renewable natural resources, land fertility, deforestation, and inland waters recession. Tanzania presents a good example. 70% of the population, peasant farmers and livestock herders, rely on climate change and global warming. As the economy and population grows, renewable natural resources are declining. Overharvesting, land degradation, and unsustainable use of renewable natural resources see to the increase in the damage. It is estimated 8,770 square kilometers disappear every year. If this trend continues, by 2075, there will be no forests. By 2075, there will be no forests in Tanzania. In the last 15 years, some 130,000 square kilometers of land has been deforested. The possibility of tree planting is very real because the soils of the country are not yet badly degraded. In Uganda, on the other hand, this country is listed as at risk of losing all its forest because of unsustainable deforestation in 40 years. Forests and woodlands are estimated to cover about 15% of its land surface. Forests provide many economic and environmental benefits. They prevent soil erosion and help maintain water resources. Forestry-related activities can offer opportunities for jobs and skills, development for youth and women. We can protect natural forests and plant new forests. If we do that, we can create jobs as answer to our growing population. Reforestation is possible. In Kenya, Wangari Maathai's Green Belt movement planted over 50 million trees around Nairobi in about 10 years. Ethiopia has since May this year planted 2.6 billion trees as part of a campaign to fight desertification. The target for Ethiopia is to plant 4 billion trees by the second half of this year, averaging of all 40 trees per each of Ethiopia's 100 million. At the recently concluded 39th summit of the SADC, held here in Dar es Salaam 2 weeks ago, the outgoing chairman, President Hage Geingob of Namibia, pointed out the immense damage which was caused by weather changes in the region this year alone. and I quote him, "Climate change is real, and our region can attest to this fact. Between January and April 2019, the region faced several weather-related phenomena, namely Tropical Cyclone Desmond, Enao, Idai, and Kenneth. As a result of these events, we witnessed extensive flooding in Comoros, Mozambique, Tanzania, Madagascar, Malawi, and Zimbabwe. Heavy rains also affected KwaZulu-Natal in South Africa." He went on, "The cyclones killed over 1,000 people, injured an estimated 3,000 people, damaged economic infrastructure, education and health facilities, and destroyed over 800,000 hectares of cropland, as well as crops and seed shocks. Over 3.3 million people were affected and required immediate humanitarian assistance, including food, shelter, clothing, potable water, sanitation, and medical support." In addition, he went on, "Below average rainfall and prolonged dry spells resulted in reduced agricultural production, thus negatively affecting pasture and livestock, as well as water supply for human and other users. Member states affected by severe drought general public and environmental activists on the worsening climate impacts and remedial measures. Biodiversity has a galvanizing effect on human health and well-being. Last May 20th, observing International Day for Biodiversity, the UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres observed that the quality of water we drink, the food we eat, the air we breathe, all depend on keeping the natural world healthy. He underlined that biodiversity and protection of ecosystems are essential to achieve the 17 Sustainable Development Goals and to address climate change. Mr. Guterres urged all governments, business, and civil society to, and I quote him, take urgent action to protect and sustainably manage the fragile and vital web of life on our one and only planet. End of quote. The UN Secretary General has called a special climate summit to be held in New York this coming September 23rd. This will be followed by COP25 in Santiago, Chile, and COP26 in the UK. The UN Convention on the Laws of the Sea will meet to negotiate a new global ocean treaty next year. It may be possible to reach an agreement emphasizing sustainable farming and fishing on the one hand, and a limit to deforestation on the other. Africa must be represented at these gatherings. What am I advocating? I'm advocating the proclamation of renewal of our commitment to preserve national parks, nature reserves, and wildlands as a national and world heritage. They can contribute to national income and job creation, encroachment should not be entertained or accommodated, but also flora and fauna are important factors to realizing national development operations. Communities must be incorporated in the programs for sustainable management of forests, and carbon credits therefrom should devolve to their benefit. The UN program for deforestation and forest degradation should devolve incentives to them for adaptation to land use in financial terms. Government and communities must collaborate always in the introduction of climate-sensitive agriculture and sustainable energy solutions. Communities must be sensitized and empowered to secure their water resources. Water user associations must be encouraged, so also must be rainwater harvesting. The population must be conscientized to the reality that development is not someone else's concern. That is the meaning of self-reliance and self-development. African countries should put in place, by policy and practice, a land use policy. This should spell out, with a minimum of equivocation, rights of occupancy and an adjudication system of resolution of land disputes. These should spell out clear guidelines and procedures for determination and enforcement. Simultaneously, they should adopt an ecosystem-based adaptation for rural resilience. There should be continuing public and citizen education on the imperative of respecting and protecting designated national forests, national parks, and national wildlife and wildlands. The citizens must be made to appreciate the true socio-economic, biological, and scientific importance of wetlands, and assisted to change from a harvesting to a management approach. The citizenry must be oriented towards the search for alternative clean fuel use, just as governments consider and promote wind and solar energy. Countries must embark on programs of reforestation and educate the populace on the importance of reversing land degradation and renewing degraded ecosystems. There must be devised a national biodiversity and action plan. Allow me to say a word about the African Wildlife Foundation, of which I am Vice Chairman of the Board. Nearly 60 years old, it is one of Africa's largest and oldest NGO. It believes first and foremost in a future where human development includes thriving wildlife and extensive wildlands as cultural and economic assets for Africa's future generations. A recent landmark UN report revealed that 1 million species are at risk of extinction, with alarming implications for human survival, yet we have the tools and knowledge to respond. Now more than ever, public and private interventions are needed. Our top priorities are to reduce poaching and human-wildlife conflict, to tackle the illegal wildlife trade, to protect wildlife in its natural habitat and restore ecosystems, and to support Africans to prioritize wildlife and wildlands as essential to development. As our saying goes, when we protect wild animals and wildlands, we protect Africa's future. Ladies and gentlemen, the world today is characterized by rapidly advancing disorientation and dysfunction. Big power alliances are coming apart. Small power integration is proceeding at snail's pace. International cooperation is less professed and may stand out not in profession but in malpractice. Development aid is increasingly questioned because it is seen as a dirty word. Africa is seen much more as a source of minerals, and its migrants are not only resented in Europe, but are left to die as they strive to cross the Mediterranean. In such a chaotic world environment, Africa must review its development perspective and strengthen its capacity for self-reliance. Let me conclude with a story. This is not the first time I tell this, but it may be the first time to you. A surgeon, a field marshal, and a politician had had a very liquid lunch together, and we are now in deep argument. Quote, "A surgeon's job is the oldest profession in the world," said the surgeon. "What makes you say that?" asked the field marshal. Replied the surgeon, "When she was made from one of Adam's ribs, and surely only a surgeon would do something like that." "Nonsense," snorted the field marshal. "Even before Adam and Eve, there was a world, and it is said order was created out of chaos. Who else could do that but a soldier of the highest?" "Ah," said the politician, "but who do you think created the chaos in the first place?" It is to Africa's politicians that we must look for the sorting of our land degradation and climate change chaos. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Your Excellency, for an excellent speech. And if I may apologize for the hitch with the sound. Ladies and gentlemen, the most unflustered person in this room during that hitch was His Excellency. Can we give him a round of applause? And you know, it struck me as we started off that we have with us a vice president, we have former heads of state, we have great corporate minds and people from the development world. But if the sound... And I think it tells us as we go into our discussions that everybody matters, and we all need to ask ourselves, what role do we play? Again, a warm welcome, a warm thank you, please, for His Excellency Benjamin Mkapa. I would like to ask, please, Vice President Samia Suluhu Hassan, please, would you take a seat right at the front for us? Also, His Excellency Jakaya Kikwete and His Excellency Mohammed, if you would please come and take the seats right at the front as we prepare to start the first panel session. Asanteni.